upgraded in any way. Odyssey was holding her right shoulder.
The Indiana Fever just secured a cathartic, historic playoff win that their fans had been waiting years to witness. But leave it to the WNBA to somehow twist a moment of pure, unadulterated joy into another bizarre and completely unnecessary fiasco. Because instead of the headlines being dominated by Lexi Hull's game-winning steal or the heroics of Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, the entire story has now devolved into a surreal confrontation between an injured Sophie Cunningham and a league-hired security guard. Let's be clear, Sophie, visibly hobbled by a bulky leg brace and standing nowhere near game ready, wasn't running onto the court or instigating any trouble whatsoever. And yet, a security guard decided to play sheriff, reportedly barking at Sophie as if she had just rushed the floor in the middle of a full-scale brawl. In this video, we'll break down this baffling incident and reveal what Sophie said that is now turning heads all across the league. But first, we have to ask, do you think Sophie is being unfairly singled out? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below.
Oh, Sophie, you're like that? Yeah, Chloe, she's like that. She's like that. She ain't moving. And then she puts her hands on the... Let me talk to your manager. Oh, shit. All right, Sophie, say no more. Say no more. Now, when your teammate gets injured, you're allowed to hop on the court and just to see if your teammate's doing good. So, injured, healthy. So, Chloe, Sophie... They had every right to be on the court over here.
And this is the question that everyone is now asking. Was this just a clueless, comical overreaction from one overzealous rent-a-cop, or was this a deliberate part of the larger, more troubling pattern we've already seen in the WNBA? The targeting of certain players who don't fit their preferred pre-packaged narrative. When you examine the history, it is incredibly hard not to believe that Sophie was singled out deliberately, and her reaction, calm but utterly defiant, showed she was not about to be intimidated by some glorified hall monitor. The setting should have been one of pure, unadulterated celebration. The Indiana Fever, despite missing not only Caitlin Clark, but what amounts to half their rotation, including Ari McDonald, Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Damaris Dantas, and Sophie herself, had just managed to pull off a dramatic, emotionally charged playoff win. The fans were on their feet, the team was hyped, and everyone in that arena should have been basking in that raw postseason energy. But instead, we got the completely surreal image of Sophie, immobilized in her brace, standing at mid-court, only to be aggressively approached by league security. There was no scuffle, there was no violation, there was absolutely no conceivable reason for a confrontation, and yet, in that instant, she was treated like some kind of imminent threat.
Why in the F is that security guard all up on Sophie Cunningham? And look, I think there is a reason she got up in Sophie's face. And I don't think there was any need to sort of bow up to Sophie like that. I don't think, and to Sophie's credit, she did not back down at all.
Just consider the optics of this entire situation for a moment. You have Sophie Cunningham, a player who is visibly and severely injured, completely incapable of sprinting even if she wanted to, being aggressively accosted by a security guard who looked absolutely determined to escalate what was a complete non-event. The cameras captured the entire surreal interaction perfectly. You could watch Sophie's expression morph in real time, from initially puzzled to visibly annoyed, and then finally to that unmistakable Cunningham glare that the fans know all too well. It was the non-verbal equivalent of someone screaming, "Really? This is what you're choosing to do right now?" And frankly, she had every single right to deliver it. The moment naturally detonated on social media almost instantly. Within minutes, clips of Sophie's defiant stare down were absolutely everywhere. And the reaction? A firestorm of pure outrage. Not because Sophie had overreacted in the slightest, but because the fans could see with their own eyes just how completely and utterly unnecessary the entire confrontation was. This wasn't enforcement, it was targeted harassment, and it plays directly and tragically into the frustrating narrative that has followed Sophie throughout her entire career. She is perpetually and unfairly cast as the villain.
So Odyssey Sims goes down hard, and Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, Chloe Bibby are waiting for her. at half court, and the cop tries to get Sophie Cunningham to move. Sophie Cunningham was like, "You're not going to get me to move. I'm waiting for Odyssey." And you could see during the review, look at Sophie Cunningham clapping, not moving, waiting for her teammate. That's the fever for you.
This is because Sophie doesn't obediently toe the WNBA's preferred party line. She is fiercely outspoken. She relentlessly challenges established narratives. She is confident, completely unapologetic, and she absolutely refuses to shrink back just because certain people want her to. And for that, she has been consistently treated differently by rival fans, by certain media outlets, and now apparently by the league's own hired staff. This is the very same Sophie Cunningham who regularly trends on Twitter, whose clips rack up millions of clicks, and whose dedicated fan base is one of the most vocal and passionate in all of women's basketball. She is, by any objective measure, good for business. But instead of embracing her as the asset she is, the WNBA seems intent on manufacturing her into a problem. The comments poured in across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Some fans said it flat out: Sophie gets treated this way because she doesn't match the league's preferred image. Others highlighted the clear racial and cultural double standards that were at play. They argued that if Angel Reese or Paige Buchers had been in Sophie's exact same spot, the entire narrative would have been flipped on its head. It would have been, look at their passion, look at their leadership. But Sophie Cunningham in a leg brace on the sideline, suddenly she is the problem. The fans weren't buying it for a second, and they let the league know it in no uncertain terms. Hashtags like #FreeSophie and #WNBA Exposed were trending within hours.
Folks, I didn't realize how much fun I would have watching these people break down. It's a meltdown. It's a meltdown on Twitter today. It's embarrassing to a certain extent. Not for me, for them. And then we got the Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever getting booed as they're getting off their court.
And here is the absolute kicker. Sophie didn't even escalate the situation. She simply stood her ground. She did not back down, but she didn't explode either. She just held her space, delivered a defiant glare, and completely refused to be bullied off the court. In other words, in that one tense moment, she showed infinitely more professionalism than the very security guard who had provoked the entire confrontation in the first place. And that is precisely why the clip went viral. It wasn't drama that she caused, it was drama the league had inexplicably created. Now let's connect some of these dots, because we have seen similar incidents play out before. Remember when the referees felt uncomfortable with Dejounte Carrington, and suddenly security had to step in? The league immediately rushed to defend Carrington, the Players Association rallied around her, and the entire media apparatus framed the incident as a clear case of unfair treatment. So why the absolute radio silence from the league when the exact same thing just happened to Sophie? Why is it only the fans who are calling out this blatant double standard while the league's leadership remains completely and conspicuously silent? Check this out right here.
Check this out right here. Yeah, you see this guy right here? Right in this Gentero area? Let me just, you see this guy? The ref asked this dude to step out here. All right? Now, Cheryl Swoops wants this referee fired. She wants him fired. Look, he felt something. He felt something was amiss. Of course, Cheryl Swoops is defending Dejounte Carrington.
This is not just about one overzealous security guard. It is about the WNBA's persistent and ongoing problem with any player who does not neatly fit their preferred pre-approved mold. Caitlin Clark has been living this harsh reality since her rookie year, getting systematically hacked, shoved, taunted, and targeted on the court, while the referees conveniently swallow their whistles and the league callously shrugs it all off. Sophie, meanwhile, has been unfairly cast as the villain for years. Now combine those two storylines and you start to see a deeply truly disturbing trend emerge. The WNBA simply does not know how to handle stars who do not conform to their preferred narrative. Instead of embracing them, they actively marginalize them. And the most delicious irony in all of this, both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are exactly the kind of magnetic, compelling players the league should be celebrating. They are incredibly marketable, they are wildly popular, and they drive a massive amount of online engagement. Sophie, even when she is injured, gets the fans talking. And Caitlin Clark, she is the single biggest draw in the history of women's basketball. Yet, instead of protecting them, the WNBA allows its own referees and staff to consistently mistreat them. And when the fans see this blatant mistreatment, they get frustrated, not just with the single isolated moment, but with the entire league as a whole.
They hate Sophie Cunningham because she's white, she's beautiful, all these things, right? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100, as they say. Sophie Cunningham is the most beautiful woman in this league. All right, she's the hottest woman in this league, and they're mad they can't be her.
The public fallout was both immediate and severe. Within hours, enraged fans were flooding comment sections, absolutely ripping the WNBA for so needlessly embarrassing Sophie during what should have been a moment of pure joyful celebration. People immediately pointed out the hypocrisy, referencing how the league had once tried to investigate its own fans for simply booing Angel Reese, or how they'd repeatedly brushed aside flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark as just part of the game. The exact same infuriating pattern is playing out yet again right here. Selective enforcement, selective outrage, and selective protection. And every single time this happens, the league's credibility takes another significant hit. And let's be crystal clear, this is not just a case of bad optics, this is fundamentally bad business. The WNBA is constantly talking about its desire for growth, for respect, and for mainstream relevance, but you cannot possibly achieve any of those goals when your biggest, most triumphant moments are completely overshadowed by viral clips of your own star players being harassed by your own staff. Fans don't want to see their favorite stars silenced or sidelined by this kind of nonsense. What they want is simple: basketball played, celebrated, and above all else, respected.
I completely underestimated the feelings that I would have watching all of the Indiana Fever haters crash out. All of the Caitlin Clark haters, all of the Sophie Cunningham haters, anything to do with the Indiana Fever, the people that are just so quick to hop on Twitter and say something negative, to hop on media and say something negative, to take credit away. I underestimated how good it feels watching these people crumble.
And here is where this single incident really begins to snowball, because the more the fans talked about Sophie's completely unnecessary confrontation, the more they started to dig. They began to piece together the much bigger, much uglier picture: the repeated double standards, the systemic mistreatment of certain players, the repeated failures to protect stars like Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. And suddenly, this was no longer just another viral clip. It had transformed into a comprehensive case study, a damning indictment of everything that is currently wrong with the WNBA's leadership, its officiating, and its fundamentally broken priorities. This is the point where the story takes a sharp turn from merely frustrating to completely and utterly revealing, because Sophie Cunningham isn't just another player in sweats on the sideline. She is outspoken, she is fiery, and she completely refuses to conform to the WNBA's carefully curated, often sanitized narratives. She does not bow down to league-approved storylines. She does not soften her edges for media comfort, and she certainly does not play the role of the smiling, agreeable mascot they would clearly prefer. She's not Paige Buchers, the WNBA's chosen replacement for Caitlin Clark. She's not Angel Reese, the league's designated controversy machine. Sophie is something that they can't quite box in, and for that very reason, she has been a target for years.
Poor Sophie. She got the contraption on. She looks great in a ball cap. Let's just keep it real. We're keeping it 100 here, as the kids say. And here we go. Right here, she's at mid-court, and then Paula Blart, mall cop. What are you doing? Well, I mean, what you doing? She got a leg brace on, for crying out loud. You come out here trying to be Brody and trying to do something, knowing damn good and well. Look at this police officer sauntering up
And here is the beautiful irony: that very defiance, that steadfast unwillingness to play nice with the league's preferred image, is precisely what has made her so incredibly popular. People love her because she is real, she is unfiltered, she is willing to say the very thing that everyone else is too scared to even whisper. That is exactly the kind of raw, authentic energy a league so desperate for mainstream relevance should be celebrating. But instead of embracing her as a legitimate draw, the WNBA seems absolutely determined to minimize her impact. Just look at their marketing. How many times have you seen Sophie front and center in official WNBA promos? Barely any, and yet her name trends constantly. Her highlights rack up millions of clicks, and her interviews get replayed far more than the players the league pushes twice as hard. When controversies inevitably flare, just notice the difference. If Sophie gets into a dust-up, she is instantly branded the villain. But if Angel Reese does the exact same thing, suddenly it's reframed as passion and swagger. The fans see it, and they are not stupid. The favoritism is painfully, insultingly obvious. And when a leg brace Sophie got shouted at by a security guard for simply daring to care about her teammates, that hypocrisy reached a brand new low. There was no logical explanation for it, except for the one uncomfortable truth that fans are already whispering: Sophie Cunningham is being singled out. And that is where the damage stretches far beyond Sophie herself, because the casual fans, many of them pulled into the league's orbit by Caitlin Clark's star power, are watching all of this too. These are the newcomers who dipped their toes into WNBA basketball for the very first time this season, only to see complete and utter nonsense like this play out. They weren't talking about Lexi Hull's heroic series-clinching steal. They weren't talking about the Fever's incredible grit. They were talking about Sophie versus the mall cop. And when outsiders see a league that is more focused on petty drama than it is on the actual basketball, they don't walk away impressed. They walk away convinced the WNBA is completely unserious, and that perception is absolutely lethal. Fans unleashed their fury online, and it was not polite. Comment sections were filled with blistering personal attacks on Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, blasting her for presiding over what they were calling the most embarrassing league in professional sports. Some went even further, calling for her resignation and accusing her of turning the WNBA into a complete circus act. When your fans care more about your controversies than they do about your competition, that is not growth. That is a collapse disguised as buzz. Meanwhile, Sophie herself handled the entire mess better than anyone else could have. She didn't blow up, she didn't feed the drama, and she refused to hand the league any ammunition. She stood firm, she didn't retreat, and she let her powerful body language say it all. "You will not intimidate me." And the fans noticed. They flooded her social media with a tidal wave of support, effectively turning her into the hero of the night. Once again, Sophie proved that when the league tries to diminish her, it only serves to strengthen her base. And then came her actual verbal response.
It was one of those games. It was such a good W game. Like it was physical. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of great plays. But I just knew deep down in my gut that we were gonna win. Like somehow we were gonna win. And like I think there was like a minute or like 40, I don't even know, like around 40 seconds left. And they left our all-star player wide open under the hoop for the go-ahead layup. And then Lexi Hull had a freaking badass steal and like it was over. But
And so, in classic understated Cunningham fashion, she simply brushed the entire incident off with a touch of humor. There was no angry press conference, no bitter, self-serving rant, just a single subtle jab that served as a powerful reminder to everyone that she, and she alone, is in complete control of her own narrative. And that is the absolute kicker here. The league seems to think that targeting Sophie somehow weakens her, but every single time they try, her popularity, her influence, and her legend only continue to grow. The fans love an underdog who completely refuses to be silenced, and Sophie Cunningham embodies that spirit perfectly.
The league is so mad that we won because we're literally not supposed to be here at all. And that just like kind of fuels our fire even more. But it was just like so fun. It was one of those games that, first of all, I was sweating my ass off because I was so nervous. And like, I don't really get anxious about stuff. I was so anxious. Like I could not sit still. I was legit. I felt like I played with how much I was sweating. And so,
and I think we all know that if there's one thing that male sports fans want to see in their spaces and on their screens, it's more of me.
Indiana Fever are heading to the semifinals.
Let's see, driving to the foul line in the paint, lays it in. Sims, crossover left to right, gets into the paint, layup, good!
Inside, Boston.
Of course, this is not a standalone issue. The WNBA has a deeply disturbing and well-documented track record of failing to protect and properly promote the very players who are single-handedly driving its success, and you need to look no further than the case of Caitlin Clark. For 2 full seasons, she has been forced to endure harder fouls than anyone else in the league, constantly being hacked and shoved with a shocking lack of whistles. The refs consistently let it slide, the league callously shrugs it off, and the fans are left absolutely furious at this blatant lack of protection. Or take the case of Lexi Hull. Her playoff heroics barely received a passing mention in the league's own media, even as fans were hailing her as clutch. And now, you have Sophie being publicly humiliated by league security in the middle of a celebration. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. The WNBA desperately wants to sell a narrative of collective growth, a story where everyone is contributing and the league is rising together. But the truth is far uglier. The leadership actively picks its favorites and deliberately pushes others to the margins. That kind of selective promotion isn't just unfair, it's a catastrophic business model. You cannot demand loyalty from a fan base while simultaneously mistreating their favorite players. Eventually, people just stop showing up, and when that happens, no TV contract or sponsorship deal will be able to patch the hole. And that is precisely why the Fever's incredible playoff run should have been a defining moment of triumph. Even without Caitlin Clark, even with half their roster banged up, they managed to win. That was the headline. Instead, it was completely overshadowed by a rent-a-cop barking at Sophie Cunningham. The league could have been highlighting Lexi Hull's defensive brilliance, Aaliyah Boston's steady dominance, Kelsey Mitchell's leadership, or the sheer resilience of a short-handed roster. Instead, the fans are left mocking the WNBA over its mall cop antics. That isn't just embarrassing, it is organizational malpractice, and at the center of it all sits Sophie Cunningham, whose only crime was caring about her team, wearing a brace, limping, clearly injured, and yet somehow treated as if she were storming the court. That one single scene told the fans everything they needed to know about how the WNBA treats players who don't fit its mold, and the backlash isn't dying down, it is building. Every clip, every tweet, every meme just adds more fuel to the fire. Fans are already framing Sophie as the underdog hero standing up to a league intent on sidelining her. The league can try to spin it, they can issue bland PR statements, they can attempt to downplay the moment, but it will not work. The people have already decided. Sophie was wronged, and the league looks ridiculous again. And that is why this incident matters so much, because once more, the narrative isn't about basketball, it's about the WNBA's staggering inability to get out of its own way. So, do you think Sophie is being singled out? Let us know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.